What's good, y'all? It's the Demouchets REACT, and we're back with another video. Who we got today, C?
Today we're back with another American reaction. So excited about this video. If you're new to us
and we're new to you,
make sure you scroll down,
hit that subscribe button,
and turn on the post notification bell,
because we're on the road to 200K.
And we cannot get there without you guys, alright? Join the family. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
Let's get it.
We're heading into our third year of quarantine with no foreseeable end in sight. Lockdown restrictions aren't really being taken seriously, and quote-unquote black slang has been banned in some UK schools. This article was sent to me while working on this video, but I figured it was actually the perfect platform to discuss something that I feel has been swept under the rug a little, and it's kind of what black UK culture is. I've made videos and references...
What is slang? Slang is not...
There's slang or...
Like, slang is culture.
Yeah.
It's like you're telling them you can't be 100% yourself, because when kids are usually just talking, it comes out. You can't filter or try to put a lid on it. Like, that's part of who they are. That's the swag, the flavor that gives them that juice. You know, like, you can't banning it from school.
Ban black words. That
bland.
Can't even say it.
Bland black.
Ban
black words. Y'all put that in there, bro. Try to say that a few times.
Let's see what this is about.
In the past of how I feel to the tired, unfunny, same free punchlines about black British people, but it's not even specifically that I'm discussing here. Something that's been made abundantly clear to me is that there's a fundamental misunderstanding of what this culture personifies, and even what the issues surrounding black people in the UK are. This is for a myriad of reasons, right? Americans have a very limited framework for what the culture personifies outside of, what, Sherlock, a British accent thrown on an evil character, and the preconceived association with whiteness in the colonial empire. And to be fair, that last point is valid, but I'm getting ahead of myself, right? Meanwhile, the internal discourse I often see on my timeline is something along the lines of relationships in London, or the tribalism of Nigerians versus Jamaicans, when I think more could be done to focus on the actual institutional issues in the ruins of the empire. So let's start there.
What's that? That'd be crazy.
Before we even get into the video,
yeah.
You know who I don't hear of a lot?
Who?
And it's kind of confusing to me. I don't hear about the descendants of the people who were enslaved as domestics in Britain, England. Y'all know we get the two overlapping and then overlapping. Y'all know what I'm talking about. The people who were enslaved as domestics or indentured servants or whatever y'all want to classify. I don't hear about them. I only hear about the Windrush generation and people who recently immigrated there. I don't hear about the descendants. It's like, what they at?
Okay. Hey.
Because all I hear about...
After the Windrush...
Talk about it. Look. Oh, the Windrush. That was a big thing. There go right there. Windrush. Yeah. All right, he going to talk about it.
Like, are we missing a part of history to where they were cast out or sent to the Caribbean?
We got to understand there's plenty pages that has been burned, ripped out, and never, like, put out there to say, hey, this is something y'all need to know about. So we got to make that as relevant as possible.
Yeah.
That's just history, though.
Right. So that's why I feel like we missing a chapter.
Yeah. It does sound, something sounds missing in this conversation. Yeah. Hopefully he knocks on it, though. All right.
Generation came through in the 1940s in order to help rebuild the country. Most of them ended up residing in South London, in places like Brixton. For the record, the British Black Panthers were formed in Brixton and helped with soup kitchens and breakfast programs. I'll talk about them probably in a different video. Yeah, I haven't seen much coverage on them, so yeah, that's something else to do. The main thing I want to communicate here is that these places became a central hub for those of Afro-Caribbean descent, and eventually their language and dialect bred throughout London. Terms like Wagwan, Mandem, Galdem, Ra, they're so commonly used within central London nowadays. They come from Afro-Caribbean communities that settled way back when. And to be blunt, they've become an integral part of youth culture in London. No, maybe not integral, but they've become a key part, right? And this might be perceived as a good thing, right? In fact, you could argue that the fact that our language has quote-unquote ascended...
Okay, they said Black British English is the equivalent to AAVE, and AAVE is a language. You cannot correct anybody's language. Okay.
Cultural barriers and form this multi-language culture is undoubtedly a good thing, right? It's to the point where I've seen terms like these be submerged from Black British English to just British culture. That's just how British people speak. But this in itself is very dangerous framing. As once again, we look at how institutionally schools are demonizing our language, and we have to also claim it as inherently British, only when it's convenient for them, of course. I grew up in schools. This happened to me. They told us not to say these things. They told us you can't wear your hair a certain way. Like, there's a lot of restrictions and regulations. Sorry, this is off script. This is like a real thing. Like, yeah, I'm not surprised by this. This just happens. Yeah, like some things are so normalized that like it's almost very difficult to be surprised by them. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself again. It's this contradiction of wanting elements of the culture to look cool when the time calls for it, but also disparaging it on an institutional level. It's not something that's lost on me. There was a clip I was sent of this white girl using multicultural English, and there was this huge debate on whether or not she was appropriating the language and culture.
This is the only time that I'm going to address the way that I talk on this app, because you guys are giving me dance in the comments.
This time I was back, and I really want to talk about this because for some reason the way that girls talk of female lingo has become some kind of a running commentary, some kind of joke recently, and I'm really not buying into it. So right, the comment says I want to hear how your parents talk. For the sake of argument, I'm going to assume that her parents have European accents because she says she's from Lithuania, even though they might have English accents. For the sake of argument, do you understand? My dad has a Nigerian accent, but do I? Do you see how that does not bang? It doesn't even make sense because you just put out your butt crack, because we all know, yeah, that your accent and the way that you talk most likely comes from your school, your education, your area that you grew up in, which is your secondary socialization, and the culture that is around that, which is exactly why in London most people, even though they come from different areas, not all people, but most people sound the same and talk with the same slang, even though our parents are from different places. Do you understand? Cool. This leads me to my next thing, which is the only distinguishable factor between me and this girl is our race. As a black girl, I really never experienced anyone talking about the way that I talk, even though, yeah, I talk really fast on this app and everyone's monkey about it. The way that I actually talk has never been an issue. So why is it when white girls talk in a certain way, when they're the ones that have grown up in the same areas as all of us, people want to say something, people want to be calling them begs and all this and that.
The conversation of what constitutes as cultural appropriation is one I've had before, and it's one I've quietly grown a bit weary of. I don't find there to be a sophisticated debate on the cultural appropriation in me.
Pause. You look at cultural appropriation differently when you see right there in Brit, they wasn't able to speak a certain way, but then we have different people of other races that use it, it's deemed okay. That's the hair. Your hair has to be a certain length. Your hair has to be a certain way, but when other people start to do it, it's okay.
So, of course, we deal with that here, and having grown up in predominantly black areas, but we had Asians in our communities as well, they will start to sound like the people they are around.
Yeah, the culture, you will get wrapped in it.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah, their parents may not sound like that, but they will with speaking. So for so many years, going throughout grade school, they will end up speaking like that.
It's like, okay, for instance, like someone goes sits at a table and they speak a certain way. The culture around that table, especially through each grade that you continuously rock with these people, you start to act like them, speak like them. You start to pick up, habits because you're around them. You get wrapped in the culture.
You're impressionable as a child.
Yeah.
You're not fully grown. You're
and not
fully
just
mature.
that. Sometimes the way we sound, our accents just tricks away. Like it changes. Yeah. Not us doing it purposely, but because you're around people that you now call friends, and you can hear this. It's a group thing. Like y'all in a group now. It's y'all thing. So
yeah, I mean,
yeah. I feel like
it starts to be wrapped up in this is the culture.
Yeah,
and that's where people starts to have problems with it.
But I feel like he's really hitting it on the nail in this video.
And the girl.
Yeah,
she did.
They all are. Yeah.
It's less the act and more the ignorance behind it which is the issue. I'm often asked to come on TV whenever a pop star wears cornrows and defend the idea that I'd like to police their lifestyle. But there's little interest in the broader picture of imperial racism and white supremacy that forms the context. So it ends up being a reductive conversation about whether or not it's okay for white people to do something, which isn't any of my business. Now, I don't entirely agree with this perspective, as I do have some issues with appropriation, but she makes a great point about how focusing on the minuscule, we ignore the wider implications. Is the problem really that this white girl looks stupid? Is the problem really that this white girl looks stupid, talking with a hybrid of jargon from different cultures? Or is it that the origin of the language is institutionally demonized? Is it that black children are still 5 times more likely to be excluded from schools? I said this last time, but I was one of them. I was hopping secondary schools because no one would take me. That's what it means.
It's just bothering me because, like, I can only imagine walking into class and you introducing yourself, you saying hello to the teacher, but you say it in a way that your friends know it. Like, I can say it so many different ways we say hello, but you can't say it in the school. So what would happen to the students?
Well, you'll probably have to say it to them for them to understand hello how we say hello.
I would have to say it.
Yeah, you'll have to tell the
All right, so
viewers
let's say we
they
be like,
understand.
Juan, what's happening? Like, we'll say that to an older adult or whatnot. And out of respect as well, they know it because of the culture. We're like, what's good? How you feeling? You know what I'm saying?
We
Like,
say,
we got
"What's
so
good?"
many different ways of saying hello that it will be understood, and yet still picked up as a slang because you can only hear it in certain cities of our areas. But and I can only imagine taking that out of their mouths. Like,
All right.
all right, so what would happen to the students? Write-ups,
Yep.
sent back to the office,
Yep.
send them home, all because of,
Call their parent
yo, they banned words like that?
because of their culture.
What?
That's culture.
Wow, that is wild. That is wild. That is wild. Y'all gotta put yourselves in people's shoes to see like how. Imagine you having been told that you can't say a certain thing. That is crazy work.
British culture is such a stupid way of describing things. It's like saying African American is the same as being an American. It isn't. Black British identity was constructed on the backs of the black diaspora. British culture is such a stupid way of describing things. It's like saying African American is the same as being an American. It isn't. Black British identity was constructed on the backs of the black diaspora. When black people take pride in being black British, they're not taking pride in Britain. It's colonial history.
It's the
wait, hold up.
history.
Or stupid Tory white people. They're taking pride in an identity and culture they've constructed for themselves in spite of that. There's a lot to
won.
love about it. And some things I'm not crazy about, but you know, if we take what we can get. I love how a lot of us have a strong
Dang
touch
it,
of our
I
African roots.
forgot my point.
There's a firm sense in
Bro,
most people from West
I
Africa.
just think at the end of the day, how he just said that alone, that's powerful, bro. It's like
Oh, I know. What
we know we know where we live, but we also know the and that's why we always say know your history.
Know your history.
Because you have a different pride with you, and it's not nothing to rub in nobody's face. You just live your life according to how you have survived, and your people survived, and your people survived. So it just reminds you that I'm here and I'm available now to live the life that I choose to live because of someone else's choices.
Right.
That's big stuff, man.
For us, we know our African American experience is not the same as a white American experience.
Yeah.
It's just not. People would want to try to turn a blind eye and say that y'all just all Americans. No, we're living two separate lives, two separate experiences. Because the things that we go through is systematically.
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
in
yeah.
our healthcare. It's in the law. It's in the policies for our communities. It's in our whole way of life. It's a different experience.
Yeah, we like the stamped version. Can't
No.
get it's stamped on us. You know what I'm saying?
And yes, of course, we have the elites in all groups
And you got good-hearted people.
and good-hearted people, but you have the elites who live a different experience based on, you know, their wealth.
Yeah,
But at
yeah,
the
yeah.
end of the day, without your wealth, we live in the same experience.
We are.
and know where they're from and even what tribe. For me, I'm Nigerian and Yoruba. And sometimes people walk up to you on the street and they know where you are.
Heard that.
From your face. They're like, you're Yoruba, you're Nigerian, I know. Somehow. And it's crazy. That's just a casual thing that can happen here. It's happened to me so many times. There's a station underpass by Waterloo where a bunch of black people just do graffiti. I go there quite often and the people there, they're nice. They're like nice people. I want to say like 4 to 5 people walked up to me to say hi and to help with my bad art like a number of times. So yeah, no, these people are really like there's like a real community there. I'm not really the biggest guy on the grime or drill scene, but when I see artists doing innovative things with the style, I love it. I love Nux. I love Dre and Mac. And while I'd say I'm not as crazy about the big names as others, like Stormzy or Santan Daves, the impact they have on the culture is undeniable. London, for all the problems I have with it, feels so culturally diverse. And the fact that I've been exposed to such a wide variety of people is a big factor into why I grew to care so much about the issues of others. And I look at all these tired, same free jokes and statements about Black British culture and identity, and I play the grump because I don't like playing the grump, but like it looks really ignorant because you have no idea what it's actually like here.
What providence do you reside from, sir, young man?
What? Of which location do you reside, my young fellow?
I'm from Gryffindor. How dare you are?
Oh, one of them.
No one actually talks about it, but nobody actually talks like this. I say all of this to take pride, but also to bluntly state that it isn't British culture. And the false categorization of that is what leads to a situation where white people can claim cultural language that isn't their own, just to look cool, while also disparaging it on an institutional level. It doesn't help that the only media America is exposed to about the UK is the occasional villainous voice, Sherlock, tea and crumpets, right? Like, it's just like the biggest of stereotypes. There's no strong commentary on what it's like to be Black British outside Black Britain. And even then, our media is very limited in our scope.
I wonder why it is. Y'all know, I don't know when I realized Idris wasn't from America, but it was a long time. Why is there a black British show or movie other than the historical movies?
It would be on the interview for me.
Right.
Yeah, I'll catch them on the
when
interview.
we know.
That's the time we catch them slipping. That's when they're vulnerable.
Like the guy from Get Out.
Yeah. A lot of great
I
forgot
forgot
actors.
his name, but and that is why when people be like, "Oh, black Brits shouldn't play our characters," I'm like, I understand where y'all coming from, but when you try to search for their shows, it's little to none. I don't know of any, and I'm not saying I'm the know-it-all, but I don't know of any.
Yeah, I feel you though.
I believe Akala talked about this in Race and Class in the Ruins of Empire, but whiteness has always been synonymous with British identity. Brexit is about British nationalism, and to be specific, white people's British nationalism. When something is incorrectly labelled as British culture, it's in some part an attempt to label it as a construct of whiteness, or at the very least, white people. And that does a disservice to the culture of black British people everywhere.
I need to be thinking urban. More Negro. The black thing. That's what's happening now.
Forgot about this show.
kids.
I brought up how in the 1940s, black people came to effectively rebuild the country after the war. This was known as the Windrush generation. Well, the Windrush generation recently has been getting their citizenship revoked and being told that their citizenship isn't valid. This selective memory in Britain's history plays a massive role into the way blackness is perceived and functions here.
Memory.
This is another example where black people have been commodified and used by Britain, but selectively, and you could argue strategically, thrown away when they're no longer necessary. Margaret Thatcher went on to say the integration, the cultural diversity. We were swamped. Isn't that crazy? Funnily enough, Operation Swamp 81, initiated by Margaret Thatcher, fun fact, initiated to reduce crime, and what ended up happening were black communities in places like Brixton were targeted, and as a direct result of that, and many other factors, the Brixton riots happened. Our existence here isn't an extension...
we heard about the riot.
Yes, we watched a documentary about that.
That was harsh. That was...
It really was. It really was. We saw the Tiki Torches people. It reminded me of here, obviously.
Yeah.
But the fact that they were just stopping people left and right and targeting. And something, I remember something happened about a house party. A fire happened at a house party. I'm trying to remember all of the details. It's failing me.
Oh,
right now.
it was a whole bunch of black kids.
Yeah.
And it was in a building, and they tried to say that they were the reason the house fire happened, but then there's proof that it wasn't them. Somebody actually planted something and
threw it in
and
there.
a whole bunch of people just like suffered.
Yeah. We are actively on our own trying to research more about black British history because we realize there's not a lot of representation. Yes, on social media, but outside of social media, there's not a lot of representation of y'all culture.
Yeah.
And there's a book, I forgot the author, but it's called Black British History or something like that. And we trying to do our part.
Yeah.
You know, it's an international channel. We're trying to understand people's cultures, their histories, and their human nature. So if y'all have some facts that people should know, let us know.
Talk about it.
Britain's generosity is a product of the need for Britain to rebuild itself. Nothing more. Everything else is just PR. It wasn't even 2 decades after black people had begun sailing into the country that the British Black Panthers were formed as a response to the rampant arrests and stop and search laws. Did you know there's a thing called the sus law? Oh my god. It was a stop and search law that allowed the police to search and arrest anyone under any form of It was a stop and search law that allowed the police to search anyone under any form of suspicion. Oh my god, I cannot words today. The irony being that in a 2018 study by the British Journal of Criminology, stop and search has had a marginal impact on crime in the UK. Contrary to what Priti Patel might tell you, it doesn't address the systemic issues that lead to crime. All it did really was create issues with black and ethnic groups because the law was seemingly designed to be used against them. It's in the namesake. 5 times more likely to be excluded. 75% of the youth being held in prison for trial are black. This exploitation and dismissal of black youth it's well documented. Let's call it spade. It's really well documented.
Yeah.
And this is where I want to hold off for 1 second.
It's a beat break.
I was kicked out of school and I had to go soul searching a bunch of times. And my dad, you know, he hated it. He went back and forth from Nigeria several times, and something he always communicated to me was to stay obedient, to stay in line, don't talk back, work twice as hard as the white kids, and someday you might work with the white man. The reality is we were the first generation of our family to move to the UK and start a family. We didn't have a lot, and the last thing you want to do when you don't have a lot is to start trouble. The system does black youth no favors, criminalizes them, robs them of their culture for PR, and sends them to jail. Like, I don't like to bring up our strained relationship with black Americans, but America is the biggest superpower in the world and has the most media control. We don't have Disney Channel UK with That's So Raven in black British accents. Institutionally, we don't even have a large foothold in British media. It's the white man's land. This isn't like a knock, right?
Oh, yeah.
But it's difficult for Americans to fathom how thoroughly their media is ingrained into our TV screens, especially comparatively speaking. Like, how many black British shows do you actually know? Because I don't know many either.
I was just talking
Top
about that.
Boy, Kidulthood. I mean, anything else? The man them got anything else? No. What? No. We ain't got enough. We're apparently overrepresented in crime. Like, that's our fault somehow. But somehow we're also underrepresented in our media. Isn't that interesting? In fact, a large reason why black British actors are pouched or pooched, is it pooched? For what are thought to be black American roles, right? Or because of unions. There are unions for them to be paid more, whereas producers can get away with playing black British actors less and banking on what is effectively exposure.jpg to compensate, only to be treated with vitriol and blamed by the likes of Samuel Jackson for stealing roles. And I'm really getting ahead of myself here. London is so diverse, yet the system wants to homogenize us. Here's your school uniforms, be professional. We all British here, it's our culture. That's how Uncle Sam sees you, and that's how you should see yourselves. Us, we're all the same. We're not. The greatest part about being black British is knowing that you're a cultural melting pot of traditional African heritage, the mass media outreach of black American material, and the cultural contributions of the black diaspora to the diversity of London as a whole. The perceptions of others aren't so much a big deal to me anymore, as I can't control the way media propaganda has affected the general American perception of us. I think, as a result of our contributions being institutionally dismissed, the conversation, culture, and history gets buried as a result. And this is also really well documented. I want to talk a bit about a guy I met on the way to work. He dropped them on the Metropolitan line and he was asking for food. I have a food bank initiative, but I didn't have the... buried as a result.
Before we get to talking about the guy he met on his way to work.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the media in the UK and the unions and all of that, I'm not well versed in that category, but my thing is I'm a person where I'm gonna become the change I want to see. Yeah. Where's the Tyler Perrys of the UK? Where's the Avas? Where is all of the big people? Why hasn't there been a change yet? Like, I understand both sides of the debate. The United States is a land of opportunity, especially when it comes to the entertainment industry. Mm-hmm. But when are they going to build up the black side of the entertainment industry in the UK so that people who want to be actors and actresses and producers and whatever else, stage managers, costume designers, all of that,
right,
can have those opportunities there?
And the way I look at it, when you don't see those things available, then you know that there's opportunity and space to be the first person to do it.
Exactly.
And being the first person to do something is big. Yeah, it's pretty big. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Was it Shonda Rhimes? Not Shonda Rhimes, Lord. What's her name? Hold up. Let me see her name. Hold up. And it was Shonda Rhimes. When she made Bridgerton, and that was one of our first times. Well, I can't really say first times, but in the recent decade, okay, where we saw black Brits represented. Yeah. And it was black British actresses. Love that for y'all. Love that. And if it takes that, like people like Shonda Rhimes, who's one of ours here, to make a space for y'all, then more people need to do it. And that's why I don't understand diaspora wars. Because at the end of the day, no matter if we're in the UK, no matter if we're in Trinidad and Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago, no matter if we're in somewhere in Europe, Africa, at the end of the day, we're all fighting similar struggles.
Yeah, bro. Keep using your voice. Yeah. I think that's what it is too, though. Like, because it's not heard a lot of what all you guys go through like that. Like slang's taken out of schools is crazy. And I think what's happening is they demonize the word slangs probably. That's why it sounds like it sounds.
They demonize it and they call it slang, but it's a part of a person's language.
Yeah.
And I'm not speaking of, like, there's some words here that the younger generation is now creating now, and we're like, that's not AAVE, that's just slang. We don't all know what that means. You gotta teach us what it means. They demonize that, and it's like, I've always been taught as a writer, you can't, when writing a book, right?
Yeah, I know you're finna
and
go
you
that
have
one.
different characters. People try to say, oh, that character has poor grammar and all that. Well, Letitia in the project, she really speak like that. So why would I make her all preppy and proper if that isn't her true self?
And all the little boys and girls around her are like living examples as well.
Exactly. And people would try to say, oh, that's a stereotype. But no, that's linguistics. That's a person's language. That's why a lot of times y'all would hear me joke and say, we barely speak English.
Yeah.
Because we're not speaking the original English, the King's English. We're speaking the words that's coming out of our mouth. How we interpret what we're listening to and what we learn as English.
Because it just don't make sense, bruh. It's like you can't force your lens on someone else and try to get them to say or believe or even see what they doing is wrong, when in reality that's just how their lifestyles are set up. And you can't shape, like, I say this at the beginning of 2024, bro. This is the year of accountability, and I think people are lacking that. Ooh. And if they take accountability, then they won't be so quick to demonize what, you know, other people are doing. Like, that's just not fair.
You can't conform a people to be
that's not fair.
One culture. And I know we keep talking about us because that's what we know most. Yeah. That's how we relate. Okay? But American culture is broad. Yeah. African American culture is something different. And the same is true for y'all, obviously.
Oh, and this is also really well documented. I want to talk a bit about a guy I met on the way to work. He's off them on the Metropolitan line and he was asking for food. I have a food bank initiative, but I didn't have the food on me because it was early, and again, I was on my way to work. But I sat down and spoke to him, and I found out he was from Brixton. And he literally said, they've gentrified the whole place and now I have nowhere to stay. Yo. Brixton, the same place. But something working on this food bank initiative has done is that it's recontextualized the way I view my community and what they're going through. I say all of this to say that while we're a hybrid of different cultures, the culture we've constructed isn't British culture. And historically, revoking our identity to the homogenous idea of Britishness has done more harm than good. Because even if you see yourself as a part of that, clearly the system doesn't. As a collective, we personify the black diaspora within the UK. And we have to do our part.
Woo! Mic drop.
Exactly. Man, we're going to stop there right there. Yeah, make sure you guys go check his channel out. I'm full when it comes to information like this because I know there's more I need to understand when it comes to how you guys are dealing with the things y'all dealing with, you know. But this was a lot. This was a lot to take in. It was.
And we're learning. We could be honest in telling y'all that we don't know much about the UK's history. But like we said, we watched a documentary about what y'all was going through, and we've ordered a book. Yeah, we've ordered a book on the collective Black British history to understand and try to mend what we know about Black British history, which is little to none. Okay? All right, y'all. We hope you guys enjoyed this video with us. Be sure to subscribe. We'll see you soon.
Peace.